Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the Barricade HD Rear Bumper with LED fog lights, fitting your 19 and newer Silverado 1500s. This is perfect for the Silverado owner who's looking for a beefier option for a rear bumper and wants one with black styling that also includes pod lights. This full-width rear bumper features rugged off-road styling, and it still retains all of the factory features of your bumper, like the helpful corner steps. It's also compatible with your factory backup sensors if you have them, your factory hitch, your trailer plug, spare tire lock, and your license plate lights. It features heavy-duty plate steel construction with a textured black powder coat finish, and also includes two LED pod lights with their mounting brackets. And for your money, you are getting a full steel bumper that keeps all of the function of your factory bumper and also includes lighting. And as far as the install goes, I'm giving this one a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It does feature a direct bolt up and plug and play install with no modification required and can be done within 2 hours. So with that said, let's jump into our install. For this install, you will need an impact gun or a ratchet will work just fine. 19, 18, 13, and 10 millimeter sockets. You may also want a swivel extension, a Phillips head screwdriver or Phillips head socket, a 4 millimeter Allen key or Allen socket, 10 millimeter wrench, and a pop clip removal tool. Alright, so the first step in our uninstall, you do have to remove your license plate because there are 2 bolts behind it. So grab a Phillips or flathead screwdriver or however your license plate is mounted to the bumper and we'll get it removed. Alright, next up, now you can see the 2 bolts that we have to remove. Grab a 13 millimeter socket and remove these. Alright, so we do need to unplug any connectors that would prevent the bumper from coming off. Our truck has 2 right here behind the license plate. We're going to start with these. Press down on this red tab, or you can use a small flathead as long as you're careful. Then you press down on the black tab and disconnect it. Next up, disconnect the black harness, press down on the tab, and pull to remove. All right, next up you need to remove each of these clips that hold the wiring harness to the bumper. Grab a pop clip removal tool and remove them. Just above that is the plug for a hitch connector. Pull back on the gray tab, press down on the black tab, and wiggle it loose. Next up, we have to disconnect this last harness and connector. Pull back on the red tab, press down on the black tab, and pull it loose. All right, next up, we're gonna remove these 2 nuts. They are 18s, so grab an 18 millimeter socket and a ratchet or an impact gun if it'll fit. Go ahead and take them off. All right, moving on to the other side. Now remember, if you are underneath the bumper to support it, grab your 18 millimeter socket and remove these nuts. Finally, there are these bumper support bars. We do need to remove this 13 millimeter bolt out of them so we can remove the bumper. Grab your 13 millimeter socket and let's get this out. Make sure you do that on the other side as well. All right, with all the bolts removed, you can grab your bumper and pull it off of the truck. It's not terribly heavy, but you might want a friend just to help you wiggle it off. All right, so before we install our new bumper, we do have to transfer over some things from our previous bumper. We're gonna start with the lock for the spare tire. Now to get this out, you just press down to remove your key out of your fob. Once you have the key free, go ahead and insert it in the lock. twist and remove. Next up, we're gonna move on to the trailer plug. This has 2 metal clips on the back side. So either squeeze by hand or use a flathead or a similar tool. Press down on the metal clips. And once you release each side, the plug should come loose. Next up, we're gonna remove this center plastic piece. Now we're just using a pair of needle nose pliers to press down on each of these clips. You can use a flathead if you like, but I think the needle nose gets both tabs at the same time. Releases it a little easier. Next up, we're gonna remove this bolt so that we can remove the license plate lights. So what we're gonna do is grab a 7mm socket and a ratchet and go ahead and get these removed. Now, once the bolt is out, you can pull it away and slide this tab out. And once this is removed, we're now gonna grab a pop clip removal tool and remove all of the pop clips holding it onto the bumper. Now you can cut these if you don't want to remove them. However, you don't want to risk damaging the wiring harness. And these will still be on here if we ever need to reinstall them or install them in our new bumper. All right, there's one more next to the license plate light itself. Now grab your 7mm socket again. Let's get this bolt out. Now again, lift and remove it so we don't break this tab here. All right, so now we have to install a few components to our bumper and transfer over a few of the stock pieces as well. We're gonna start with the covers that go on the outside of our bumper. Working towards the edge near this step, line up the plate with the holes in your bumper, and using the Allen head hardware with a washer, go ahead and slide them in. Now we're going to use a lock washer, a washer, and a nut on the back. Go ahead and install the other 2 bolts. Grab a 10mm wrench and a 4mm Allen key or Allen socket and tighten these down. Repeat that process on the other side. Grab your 10mm wrench and 4mm socket and tighten these down. All right, now we're gonna install the spare tire lock. It goes in the same way that it came out from your factory bumper. The trailer connector plug. This accessory piece in the center. And while we're here, we're also going to install these retainers for the bolts for your license plate. All right, so to install our pod lights, we're going to run the wiring harness through the bumper. So we're going to slide the wiring harness for the pod light through the honeycomb. And now we can line up the pod light. I'm going to slide the bolt through this bracket. And there's 3 slots on the bumper. You can go to whichever that you like, so the pod light will be in whichever position you desire. Now you can install the rest of your hardware. Grab a 13mm wrench and tighten it down. Now you can repeat that process on the other side. Grab your 13mm wrench and tighten it down. Now we can transfer over the license plate lights. Line up the light on your bumper. And with the included hardware, this should already have a washer and lock washer on it. Thread it into the threaded hole on your bumper. We're using the included 4mm Allen key. Go ahead and tighten it down. Repeat that on the other side. Also, you want to make sure that the wiring harness for these license plate lights is secured properly. There are not clips like the factory bumper, so you're going to want to just make sure it's zip tied or fastened out of the way and it's not hanging down. Grab your 4mm Allen key and tighten it down. Now we're going to install these sensor plugs. Our truck does not have sensors for the bumper. If yours does, at this point you would install those. We're also going to install the bolt plates at this point. Line them up in your bumper and then install these plastic retainers to keep them in place before we install the bumper. Repeat that on the other side. All right, so now that we have the factory bumper uninstalled from our truck, we can check it out side by side with our bumper up here. And as you can see, it features a much beefier construction than our factory bumper. It's a full steel plate construction with this nice black powder coat finish that adds a bit of aftermarket style to your truck. It also works with all of the factory components, your license plate lights, your trailer hookup, your spare tire lock, the side steps on the corner here, and it also features these added pod lights for some additional lighting for your truck. So with that said, let's finish up our install. Now we can install our bumper. You're definitely gonna want a hand for this one because it is a pretty beefy bumper and we wanna make sure it's lined up properly. Once the studs are through your frame, go ahead and install the included hardware. All right, so once you've installed the hardware here, grab a 19mm socket and tighten them down. Now you may want a swivel extension for this top one here just so you can get a better angle on it, or you can use a ratchet. Go ahead and tighten this one as well. And repeat that process on the other side. Now you can plug in the connector for your trailer plug and plug in the connector for your license plate harness. All right, so we're at the front of the truck now and we're gonna route our wiring harness through the engine bay and out to the rear bumper. We're gonna start with the ends that connect to the pod lights. We're just gonna route them right down here, going down the firewall of the truck. Again, make sure it's away from anything that's hot or sharp. And then once it's fully routed down to the floor, we can go underneath the truck and route it to the pod lights. All right, with the harness run, we can now attach this end to the battery. What we're gonna do is grab a 13mm socket, remove this nut, so that we can get the positive eyelet over this post. All right, we're going for the negative terminal on the battery with the 10mm nut that's back here. Slide the eyelet over that part of the battery. And tighten down your nut. Now make sure you're routing this wiring harness properly and securing it completely. You also have one relay right here, and you want to either put a zip tie through this or you can use a self-tapper. Any way you can secure this so it's not moving around in your engine bay. There's a bracket right back here. This is going to secure it to that. Again, move your wiring so that it's all secured. And let's route our wiring harness. All right, this is the connector for your switch. We're gonna route this through a grommet in the firewall to get into the passenger compartment. And you can route this however you like, it depends on where you want your switch to be. We're gonna pull back the grommet right here behind the battery area and push the connector through. All right, now that you have the connector through the firewall out from under the dash, go ahead and connect it to the switch. You should see it illuminate on and off. We're gonna peel back the protection on the back of the double-side adhesive. Line it up to where we want it on the dash. I'm gonna go for right here and stick it down. Make sure you're routing this cable so it's out of the way. All right, now that the harness is routed to the back of the truck, go ahead and plug it into each of the pod lights on each side. Once it's plugged in, you do want to route it up and zip tie it out of the way of anything moving, all of your suspension components, anything sharp or hot. Plug in the other side as well, and tuck this wiring harness up and out of the way. All right, now we can plug in the two connectors right behind your license plate. And now you can install the license plate itself. Using your factory hardware, ours just happened to be Phillips. Install the screws in your new bumper. We have a Phillips head bit here. You can use a screwdriver or whatever type of hardware you have and install it. All right, so that is gonna do it for the review and install of this bumper. And remember, for all things Silverado, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.